Hello, Professor Rad here, and today we're going to continue exploring our order of operations. In particular, we're going to be looking at several problems that are playing around with different kinds of grouping symbols. So, I've got my little story here, gems, to help me remember my order of operations. First, we're going to do anything that's put in a grouping symbol first. Then we'll do any exponents. Then we multiply or divide from left to right, and then we are going to subtract or add, again from left to right. So in this first problem, they want us to find 3, and then in parentheses, 12 plus 15. So just as a reminder, when you see a number directly in front of parentheses with nothing in between, another way of thinking about that is to say that's 3 times and then whatever's in those parentheses. So our order of operations says we've got to complete anything that's inside grouping symbols first. And here we have 12 plus 15. That's inside our grouping symbols. I also want to remind you that if you wish, you can use a calculator for your individual steps. So we can use this to help us figure out 12 plus 15. And that's going to give us 27. So 12 plus 15 is 27. And since I've completed the thing that's in the parentheses, I'm going to get rid of those for now and bring down my times 3. Now, since there's only one operation left, we can go ahead and do that. Definitely going to use my friend here. So we'll multiply by 3, and we get 81. Let's go ahead and type the whole expression into our calculator as a check. So we have 3 parentheses 12 plus 15. 3 parentheses 12 plus 15. And we get 81, so our answer checks out. Sweet. All right, let's go on and do part B. So I've got a whole bunch of these here for us to look at. So for part B, we've got 12 plus 15 all over 3. Now, when something is written in this manner, remember it means that the 12 and the 15 are being grouped above the division line. So you can also think of this as 12 plus 15 in parentheses, and then that line means to divide by the bottom. So we're going to divide by 3. So I'm going to follow my order of operations and do anything that's been grouped together first. So the 12 and the 15 are grouped together, just like they were in the previous problem. And we got 27 when we added them. So we're going to get 27 here. And then I'll bring down my divided by 3. Now I know that 3 goes into 27 9 times. So we should get 9. If I want to type this into my calculator to check, based off of what this says, I'm going to type it in like how I wrote it here. So I'm going to do a parentheses and do 12 plus 15, close those parentheses, and divide by 3. And we get 9, which is the right answer. Now, I do want to show you what happens if we type this into the calculator without those parentheses. So if I do 12 plus 15 divided by 3, I end up getting a 17. So this is a situation where your calculator follows the order of operations based on how you type the expression. So when your calculator sees 12 plus 15 divided by 3, your calculator says, "Ooh, there's division," and that's more powerful than adding. So the calculator does the dividing first to get 5, and then adds that to 12, and that's why it's getting 17. So this is why this is a little bit sneaky. You need to know that when you see numbers together on one side of a dividing bar, that there are invisible parentheses there, so you know how to type that into a calculator to properly check. All right, let's go ahead and work on part C. bring my little note along with me here. So in part C, the 12 and the 15 are itty bitty. They're both on the same exponent level. So those are grouped together. So I've got to add those up first. So by now I definitely know 12 plus 15 is 27. So this is 3 to the 27th power. This I'm definitely going to need my calculator for. So let's do 3 raised to the 27th power. Oh, word. Okay, so we've got this giant number there. I know it's a giant number, not only because it fills the screen, but because it's got E12. So on this calculator, that E is a stand-in for scientific notation. So I'm going to write this all out without the decimal point, and I'll put the decimal point in at the end. So I'm going to move this off screen so I have a space to write it. But let's see what we get here. We get a 76255, 76255, 97485, 97485. Now the power that's on the calculator, it says E12. So the decimal point was originally here, and I have to move it to the right 12 places. All right, here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. Oh boy. Glad I used the calculator to help me on that one because that is a long number. All right, let's go ahead and do this next one. Now this next one has a cubed root, and the 12 and the 15 are grouped underneath. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to back up. Boop, because I wanted to check this on my calculator. So I'm going to type this into the calculator wrong first, and let's see if we know why it's wrong. So let's say I have 3 exponent 12 plus 15 equals, and that is not the same. It's a big number, but it's not the same as this big long one we got here. So can you see what I did wrong here? So notice that on the calculator, this 15 is big, while the 12 is small. So what I did was I didn't ensure that the numbers in the exponent were grouped together. This calculator actually tries to help me prevent that mistake. But if I'm typing this in on a different calculator, but also this one, I'm going to do the 3 and then my exponent button. And just like up here where we had invisible parentheses around the top, I'm going to type those invisible parentheses around the exponent. And now when I hit enter, it gives me that correct crazy number. So some calculators don't express exponents this way. Let me see if I have one that's going to mess it up for us. Pardon me while I reach off screen for another calculator that will maybe break for us. Yes, this one's going to break. So if I just type this in, 3 exponent 12 plus 15. Oh my goodness, this one didn't break because it put that parentheses out in front. Oh goodness. All my calculators are deciding not to break on me today, making me look like a fool. Well, trust me, there are some calculators that won't put that parentheses there and then it'll end up breaking. So just be mindful. If your calculator doesn't put a parentheses there, make sure you put it there if you have operations happening up in the exponent. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at example D here. So for example D, the 12 plus 15 is all grouped underneath this radical bar. So we're going to add that first. That will give us the cubed root of 27, which I happen to know is 3. So let's go ahead and check this one. I think all my calculators are going to choose not to break this for me, but let's do a check. So I'm going to type in the cubed root of 12 plus 15. And notice this calculator put all of that underneath the radical for us. So this calculator is already setting up that grouping. And we get what I had gotten, a 3. Just so we can see what might look slightly different, I'm going to bring back this one. And I do want to point something out. So I'm going to find my cubed root. So this button has a cubed root button. And notice, just like it did with the exponent, it put a parentheses here for us. Some calculators don't. So this is why you want to know your calculator. If your calculator does not put a parentheses there, you want to make sure you put it there when you're checking your answer, so that you're taking the cubed root of this whole expression, not just the 12. And we get 3. So here, I'll show you what you would get if you had a calculator that does break for this one. So if your calculator is telling you 17.289 blah, blah, blah for this question, that means you need to put a parentheses around the whole thing. Don't put it in like how I did, that's broken notation. But if your calculator is giving you this number, it means that you entered it into the calculator wrong. All right, and let's do one last problem. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Hitting my phone here. So let's do one last problem together. And we've got 3 divided by, and then these square brackets, which are grouping symbols. So 12 plus 15 we know to be 27. Now I know 27 divided by 3 is 9, but that's not what this says. This says 3 divided by 27. So let's bring our friend back in over here. 3 divided by 27. Okay, and we're getting a repeating decimal. So they didn't tell us to round on this question, so I'm going to write my answer as 0.1 and put a line over that 1 to indicate it's repeating. Or you could, if you wanted to, write it out as 0.111 and then 3 dots afterwards to indicate the repeating decimal. When I go to check this whole thing on my calculator, I'm going to do 3 divided by, and my calculator doesn't have these square bracket symbols on it because my calculator knows those are basically parentheses. So I can go ahead and type those in as parentheses. And it should give me 0.1 repeating, which it does. Okay, so while we are focusing in on grouping symbols, I did want to point out that sometimes you can have more grouping symbols going on at once, and sometimes grouping symbols overlap and sometimes they don't. So in example 34, we're going to work through 3 expressions. In some of them, the grouping symbols overlap, and in other expressions, they don't overlap. So let's go ahead and work through example A. So we've got 25 plus 15. And remember that since those are on the same side of this dividing line, there's secret parentheses written around that. And on the bottom, we have an operation as well. So there are parentheses around that. So we've got parentheses around the top, parentheses around the bottom. So this is a situation where the parentheses don't overlap because you've got fully contained parentheses up top, fully contained parentheses on the bottom. So technically, we can do these two at the same time, basically. So what I'm going to do is 25 plus 15, and that gets me 40. So that's what we have up top. And then in the bottom, we have 2.5 times 3 2/10. And that gave me 8. So now we can go ahead and finish this. 40 divided by 8 is 5. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this problem all out in one line instead of using this notation, just so you can see what it would look like there. So I'm going to have in parentheses 25 plus 15 divided by 2.5 times 3.2. If I want to type this whole expression into my calculator to check, this is how I'm going to type it in. Oops, let me just throw paper everywhere. So we've got in parentheses 25 plus 15, close them up, divided by, in parentheses, 2.5 times 3 2/10, close it up, and hit enter. All right, excellent. We get 5. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at part B. All right, so in part B, we have multiple grouping symbols going on. So we have these square brackets and we have these parentheses. So earlier I mentioned, I think in the last video I mentioned that sometimes you might see both square brackets and parentheses, and that's to help you know which grouping symbols match up with each other. In this case, notice that the two parentheses are fully contained inside of these square brackets. So this is a situation where we have grouping symbols inside grouping symbols. When that happens, you can also, sometimes this is called like nested symbols. So when this happens, you want to work from the inside towards the outside. And just as a comment, this is how computers understand code. So when there are things that are grouped together in code, it's going to do whatever's in the parentheses and then sort of work its way out. So let's do this 13 plus 5 first, because that is the inside-most grouping symbol. And that gives me 18. Then I'm going to bring down the subtraction and the 26. And I keep those brackets. And I bring down the squared. Okay, we still have grouping symbols here. So that's still our first level of work to do. So we're going to do this subtraction. So 26 minus 18 gives us 8. So since we completed that subtraction, we no longer need those grouping symbols, and I can bring down the squared. Now, something to be very careful of here is making sure that you keep that 2 raised and small so you know it's an exponent. A common mistake here might be to slightly, to start to enlarge the 2 and then mistakenly make this 8 times 2. So be careful with exponents when you're bringing them down in situations like this. 8 squared is the same as 8 times 8, which is 64. But again, if I didn't know that, I could go ahead and use my calculator to help me. So I could do 8 and then press my squaring button to get 64, or my exponent button. Let's go ahead and check this whole thing in one go on the calculator. So I'm going to start using a parentheses for that first bracket. 26 minus another parentheses, 13 plus 5. Close the parentheses, close the brackets, square. Let's hope we get 64. We did, hooray! All right, let's do one more problem. Oh, golly geez. Okay. This is a problem that I would refer to as the bark being worse than the bite. So this is a sort of question that when we look at, we're like, yeah, no, thank you. This is impossible to do, right? We've got multiplying, we've got dividing, we've got these like radicals hanging out. So it's important to take this one step at a time. Hold on to this. This is like your little security blanket, I guess, to help us through situations like this one here. Focus in on this first step, grouping symbols. We have things that are being grouped. Underneath this radical, the 9 and the 16 are being grouped together. So we're going to do that first. So 9 plus 16 is going to give us 25. So I'm going to bring down 25. Let's bring down everything else as well. I know it's a lot, but we can do this. Okay, we're still on this grouping symbols. We just finished this group when we got a number. Do we have any other grouping happening? Yes. So there's this other radical here, and it's grouping the 24 divided by 3. So that's what we're going to do next. So 24 divided by 3 is going to give us 8. So this becomes 8. We've got a cubed root times 2 plus square root of 25. Okay, still clinging to this here to help me through this. So we've got our grouping symbols. No, just a single number here, just a single number here. So we're done with the grouping symbols stage. Now we move on to exponents. Now I'll remind you, exponents really stands in for exponents and radicals, because nth roots and exponents undo each other. They're going to be on the same level. So I notice that we have a square root happening here. So that's on the exponent level. So I'm going to go ahead and do second x squared to get my square root. We need to find the square root of 25. Remember, when there's no index written, that means it's the square root, or the index is 2. So the square root of 25 is 5. So this part, 5. Bring everything else down. Okay, now, I don't know if you could tell, but like I'm kind of taking a deep breath after every one of these steps. And that's actually intentional, because when I'm in a stressful situation like this, I find that I tend to like hold my breath. And what happens is, especially for long questions, like we're not even like done yet, my goodness. So for long questions like this, if you don't take that moment to kind of clear your brain after each step, you're going to hold on to each of these steps in your memory, and it's going to accumulate and build stress and confusion. So just take like a second or even a fraction of a second. And after each step, give yourself a moment to say, I did it. And now we're on the exponent step. So let's check to see if there are any more exponents and radicals. So we've got a 5, 2, a radical here. So we're going to have to do this cubed root of 8. Again, I'm not going to stress about this. My calculator will do that for me. So I'm going to enter in the cubed root. And I'm going to do a cubed root of 8. Oh, that's just 2. It's just 2. Don't worry about it. It's cool. Bring down this other stuff. Now it's looking a lot better once we get rid of those radicals. So we have a 5, a plus, a 2, a times, a 2. So I don't have any more exponents. So we can move down our list to multiply and divide. We do have a multiplying, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, this I know. 2 times 2, 4. Bring down the plus and the 5, and take a moment to breathe. Okay, and then we only have one operation left, so that's what we're going to do. 5 plus 4 is 9. Ta-da! Okay, let's check this one. So I'm going to bring my calculator back here and very carefully enter this into the calculator. So I'm going to start out with the square root, 9 plus 16. Now, this is important when I enter it into this type of calculator. We've got this like little cursor. If I continue to type, it's going to keep putting things under that radical sign. So to get out of the radical, I'm going to press the arrow, and now it's done with the radical and the cursor's outside. Then I'm going to do plus 2 times. Now I have to do the third root. So I'm going to do the index of 3, second exponent to get the third root, 24 divided by 3. Move on out. All right, here's the make it or break it. Let's hope we get 9. Yes. All right, I'm going to show you how to check this on a calculator where it doesn't do this like radical notation like this one did. So we're going to bring in this one here. Just because of the mode that this one is in, it's mirroring what you might have on your calculator. So start out same way, square root of 9 plus 16. So notice on this calculator, when I press the square root button, it typed in this parentheses for me. I now have to tell it, okay, that's it. Those are the only things that were under the radical. So let's put a parentheses there to close it. Plus 2 times. Now I'm going to do the third root. So I'm going to do 3 root of 24 divided by 3. Again, we've got this parentheses that was inserted for us, which we want. So now we're going to close that and hit equals. And we get 9. Just to show you what happens if I don't close those parentheses, it's going to give me the wrong answer. So let's see, if I forgot to close my parentheses, cubed root of 24 divided by 3, yeah, see, it gives me a very different answer. So the calculator is going to do what you tell it to do. So you want to make sure you're telling it the right thing. So cool. So those are some problems practicing with grouping. And I have a few questions that you can do to try this out on your own. So we have a little printing mishap, so a little cut and paste job here, kind of old school. But for this Now Your Try, you're going to evaluate each expression by hand according to the order of operations. So again, you can use your calculator to do the individual expressions, but and you can use it to check, but you want to do each step one at a time. Again, don't let the expressions overwhelm you. I mean, it's going to happen. They overwhelm me too, especially some like gnarly finance formulas, like when you're calculating interest. Oh boy, some of those can be pretty gross. So acknowledge it, say hello, terrifying expression. I'm going to tackle you, right? And just take it one step at a time. And use your order of operations to guide you, right? So use that as your security blanket as you move forward. So that's going to wrap this up for not only 2G, but for our entire first unit. So our next unit is going to be about signed numbers. So we'll start talking about positives and negatives. But for now, let's focus on order of operations and make sure we've got some good practice in with that. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.